All right, so we are live. Welcome. Dealing with some technical difficulties tonight. Struggle streaming before I was even streaming, but the guys helped me get it straightened out. So as normal, we got the panel. We don't have JC tonight, but I do have Sim. I got the Intentional Millionaire. So I'm going to let them come up. I'm not going to waste your time. We're going to get into it. Talk about a couple of different things tonight. First of all, we're going to do a little talk about relationship, but it always is centered around money. So as you can see on the thumbnail, we're going to get into talking about, does her making more money, does that matter? We're going to get everybody's thoughts. But without further ado, let me go ahead and welcome the Intentional Millionaire up to the stream first. How's it going?
What is going on, Perry Unlikely? How is it going today, sir? I know you were struggle streaming, but hey, we here. We still gonna rock and roll. We gonna make do with what we got.
Absolutely, absolutely. As you can see, the camera's not as crisp as it normally is, but we're not gonna worry about it. We'll get into it, man. Tell them a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pull Sim up and get started.
So for those of y'all that don't know, I am Tim, also known as the Intentional Millionaire. And what I do is I teach finance, anything in the area of finance, where we coach, mentor individuals so they can work on building out their portfolio. And in that process, we also talk about the two most important things as it relates to money, finance, and wealth. And that's one, making sure you believe that you're supposed to be wealthy, you're supposed to make more money, and then how to execute. Because you can know all the process, you can understand all the financial vehicles, you can know about them, but unless you implement and execute on something, it's really just the idea. So that's kind of what we do over on Tim, also known as the Intentional Millionaire.
Absolutely, man. I love to hear that. I'm glad you touched on the fact that you got to believe it first. If you don't believe it, it's going to be a waste of time. You got to be able to understand it and believe it in your mind first of all. So absolutely. So let's get Sim up here. Welcome, Sim. How's it going?
Salute. How's it going, everyone? I'm well. How y'all doing?
Salute. Doing great, man. Can't complain at all.
How's it going there, Sim?
Man, I'm doing well. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. So my name is Sim or Simcia, and what's happened with me is that for most of my life I've been beat up. I've been beat up by money. Money's been beating me up, right? And it's always been a moving target. It's always been something that I've always had a difficult time really making contact, And so it wasn't until maybe about 4 years ago that I really started to get the picture. I started to really start making some contact and really started to change my mindset about the way that I was viewing money in the relationship that I have with money. So my channel is about my growth and my journey as I'm moving on towards becoming more educated as it pertains to money and becoming a high value man, or a man that has a reasonable amount of success. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to have discussions going into the future, about different things that I've learned along my way. I'm by no means a specific expert. I'm more so an enthusiast who's really interested in sharing everything that I've learned with everyone. So if you're interested in something along those lines, check out my channel, Simcia, just like it's spelled right here. And I look forward to us potentially connecting on future streams or in the comments,
Absolutely, man. Sounds good, man. And once again, thankful for both of you all joining. So I'll round it up and just, mention my channel. I didn't do it to begin with. Perry Unlikely, my channel, I have a passion for cryptocurrency as well, real estate. I love both of those things. I'll say my first love is real estate. I think that should be the foundation of everything. Then I'll say 401k after that and alongside that for sure. And then I think, crypto rounds that up. I think crypto is probably a bigger opportunity as far as the multiples, but at the same time, it's not as forgiving, right? So just trying to educate people. But ultimately, anytime I'm talking about money, I try my best. I don't always do it, but I try my best to just make sure that everyone understands you've got to tailor all the things we talk about, to what works for you and your scenario. We don't know your background, where you've come from, your thoughts on money. So, while one person may say Dave Ramsey's not good, someone else may say he is, right? So always think about tailoring things to what works for you. And that's the safest way to do it. But I do believe if people keep money on their mind in the right way, anyone can be successful. So to get started, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about relationships and as far as females making more. Now, one reason I want to talk about this, my personal belief is there's a lot of a cap out there in terms of, I think it's one thing, right, gentlemen, to say that, I want to be the breadwinner, but I think also you start to see different ideas come together. So what I like about this panel is when we come and talk about stuff, we just keep it real, right? So there's all these ideas out there, and you just start to see that the math and stuff coming from one side doesn't probably add up, because you think about women in their education level, certainly Black women, right? But women in general. Well, at some point, that education level, when it comes to finances, is going to outpace men. Not necessarily, if we'll say, how you could say per capita or percentage wise, but from a just overall standpoint. Also, not to mention there's more women anyway, right? So let's get into it. First of all, we're going to watch what the men say. So we got a video. We're going to watch what they say about it. And then we're going to watch what the women say. And in honesty, I had not seen these videos. Now, I did go ahead and watch a little bit of it earlier. We're going to see some snippets of it. And I was actually surprised because the way I heard both groups of people talk was a little different than I expected. So we won't waste any time at all. We'll get into it. And then we'll come back. And what I'll do, first of all, we'll watch the men. We'll talk about that real quick. Then we'll go watch the women, and we'll get you all's thoughts on that as well. So let's get into it. Let me make sure that you can hear it and don't have any issues.
So back to your question about significant other making more money. Is that a problem? Is that nothing?
Perry, it's low. It's low.
It is.
Yep.
All right.
I don't think it's a bad thing. Because roles have changed. Yeah, roles have changed. Well, women are fighting for more power in certain situations.
You said it's low?
It's still low. It's still low.
All right, let me fix that real quick.
All right.
Let's
go to the chat. Let's go to the chat.
All right, absolutely. You're going to go ahead and let's see. Let's check the chat out. And I will fix this really quick. Let's see.
So
I know we got Uncle Stu in the house.
Yeah, salute to Uncle Stu. Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. If you're not familiar with him, I definitely recommend you checking out his channel. He's a man that comes with a lot of wisdom, and the conversations that he's having on his channels, they're really important conversations, and a lot of them are conversations that I wish I would have had with someone senior to me, when I was a young man, and it could have possibly helped me out and kept me from making some of the mistakes that I've made along the way. So I definitely strongly recommend checking out Uncle Stu, the old man on the block.
All right, let's see. We're going to try this real quick. You can tell me if you can hear it a little bit better. Okay. All right, let's see.
Like they're getting more jobs that we get, such as engineering and things of that nature. And you can't really fight it if they make more money than you.
Does that make you feel a certain way?
I don't. I'm like this. Money to me does not equate. It doesn't quantify or qualify the type of love or the amount of love you have for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this: if I make $100,000 a year, throw a figure out there, and I meet this woman who blows my mind, and she makes $1 million a year. I don't like the fact that she make more money than me, though, bro. So
we had to lock this one up later.
Yeah, I need to find somebody with 100 or less. I think that's the male ego that's been driving the entire plan of this world, and I think that there's nothing wrong with it. I don't see why, growing up traditionally in America, the man of the house is the breadwinner. I said, but nowadays there's a lot of ways to make that bread. And a lot of women are much better at certain things than I know me. I won't say everybody else, but women are the spearhead of this new movement. So you're not willing to or able to accept and embrace the fact that your significant other makes more than you if you're a man, then you need to go back to the 60s.
I agree with that. I mean, I think money is one of the things that causes rifts within relationships. So I think if you're able to get in a relationship with your significant other and whoever makes 10%, 20% more, I think that conversation really is relevant. Just as long as the main focus of you guys being together is because of attraction, because of love, because of wanting to build something together that's strong and has a foundation. If your foundation is just solely based on the financial aspect, you're going down the wrong lane in the first place.
All right, gentlemen. Did y'all hear that pretty good?
Yes, I did.
Good deal. All right, so let's get into it. Sim, I'm gonna start off with you. Give me your thoughts on that. First of all, you can let me know what these guys were saying, because, and I'll just, to make sure that anyone comes in and understands, they basically all believe that that's just a part of, potentially it's just a part of what you can encounter in today's world. That's what most of them felt. None of them really seemed to have any issue with it. What's your thoughts, Sim, on, were you surprised that was their take? And then what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking around. Interestingly enough, I was looking around at the hands that all the gentlemen, with the ring finger, at the table, and it would look like maybe with the two of the guys were married, and maybe some of the other majority of the other ones were single. But I'd say that we don't really have a choice as to whether or not the conversation really goes in the direction of admitting that a good portion of women could be earning more than men out here. I think that it's not realistic for you to say that you can't bear for your woman or for your girlfriend or your wife to make more money than you, because if they're pursuing their careers and they're prioritizing their careers and their education, it's only a matter of time before those are the results that they actually have as a result of all the work that they're doing. It just really depends on where you meet her on her journey, right? Because if you met her when you both were in college, right, the journey from you graduating from college all the way up until she's excelling in the career, in the corporate world, that's a journey that you two took together, right? But it's not always the same when it's someone who's already arrived when you come before them, and then now they're having to consider you as a potential mate, and they're saying, hey, is this person interested in dating me because of my career, my status, or are they interested in me as an individual? So we have to make sure that we understand those two dichotomies between the person who's fresh out of college and willing to ride with you on the way up, and someone who's already feel like they've already amassed a certain amount of success, and so now they need to look at you, take a double take and double check that, make sure that your intentions are pure and sincere.
Absolutely, man. I think that's a great take. Intentional. What's your thoughts on it?
I agree with what they're saying, but I think we just got to bear in mind that it really boils down to communication and respect.
Right.
Because I think it's easy for a man to say his perspective, but the problem with that is you still got to know the other person's perspective that's across the table.
Right.
And I think that, yeah, that sounds fine, but if she makes more, and let's just say she's the spender and he's the saver, and he tell her, they had a conversation, he recommend her not to spend, will she respect his decision even though he don't make the most money? And I think that's where the conversation, the challenges there lie. And I think you can't blanket that for any given sex, gender, or whatever. It really depends on the two individuals and their level of understanding and openness for course correction and for the better outcome on what they're trying to do and build together. That's really what I would say to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think that's a perfect point. I think it comes down to communication. And that's why I think I know, right? I know the web is about talking points, right? But, Sim touched on it. I mean, there is a degree of reality, right? Like when you meet someone, right? If you're just simply fixated on stuff like that, you're not getting to what's probably more important anyway. But when you get to that point, like the Intentional Millionaire said, it comes to a point where you gotta have those conversations and you got to see, what's going to work right. Look, there is that thing of obviously we make it out to be like, when you hear it, every man is built to bring home all the bread. But financially in today's world, it's just not going to happen, right? So it's just one of those things where I think it's like anything else, it's a conversation. You have that conversation and you see what works best. And I think also at the end of the day, what are your bigger goals, right? I mean, ultimately, the way I look at it, even if she made more, if you guys balance each other out, because a lot of times there's a spender, right? And a lot of times there's someone who's a saver. If the man in that case is more the saver and the planner, if that mutual respect's there, I mean, you're going to be taking care of what's important down the road. And that's not going to work well if you have someone where we don't have a collective that's really just looking at those things the way that they should. So I think that's a great talk. The biggest thing I want to talk about this was because we're in a world where obviously now everyone wants to talk about being high value, being this and that. We know the statistics just don't show that. So it's just not the case. And ultimately, as long as husband, wife, couple, whatever are on the same page money-wise, it's just going to lead to better success. So and I'm not sure if you guys touched on this. Were you all surprised that was their take, or is that what you kind of just thought it would be?
I'm gonna be honest. For me, I think that's most men's take. I think most men that's securing themselves, that's their take. I think YouTube has a lot of talking points that's unrealistic.
Right.
But I also will say this. I think when you really look at statistics, I think the whole concept of still women make more than men, that's not necessarily true. When you really look at the statistics and you really look at the financial data, that is not true. However, it's a narrative that's been pushed by media.
Right.
So when you think about it, because most families realistically still need 2 working incomes. So we can't, what we tend to see a lot of times is people take the minority and talk like that's the majority, and it's not true.
Yeah.
So
I agree with
think
that.
we got to really dissect the information, and then we still got to have a conversation, because the number one reason for divorce is finance.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with who makes more or what. It has something to do with, are y'all in sync and in line together financially based on the goals that you want for the family.
Right. Absolutely. And I do want to add to that. Now, I don't have statistics, but I can just tell you by the eye test. I do tend to see, I think a lot of this conversation is just strictly off of social media. I do see more women making more than men in social media. It's because there's way more of them. I mean, if you just think about the influencers, I see way more women influencers, if you're talking about Instagram and stuff like that, than men. So some of that conversation, a lot of it is geared. You know how people will talk, they'll talk about NBA players, athletes and stuff as if that's the norm. That's not the norm out in the everyday working world. That's just not the case. So I think that is why part of that conversation is driven the way that it is. It's because people are basing it off of what they see, what we used to say would be what we see on TV. it's what we see on social media. So I do agree with you on that.
You know,
Right. And then a lot of that on social media is still not true.
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Because that's what I'm saying. Because a lot of it's still not true. And then you still got to factor in, at the end of the day, when we marry up together, what does that look like?
Mm.
Because
Exactly.
I still think the conversation still really need to get away on who makes more, who's the breadwinner, this and that. And let's talk about how can we align with what we have.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
I still think because what's tending to happen is the talking points is based on traditional way, the old way, but that has to evolve at some point. And then you talk about what's going on right now. Then we pushing talking to stuff that may not statistically be true. However, at the end of the day, neither one of them really matter if you align together. Let's totally be honest. None of that really matters when you align together. Meaning when you spiritually sound, physically sound, financially sound, and mentally sound, and you know where you're going for the better outcome of the family.
yeah,
None of that really matters.
But I say that, but we got to look at that, the marketing, right? The marketing, the socialization. Is the socialization moving us in a direction where we're going to be in sync, like you're talking about, Tim, right? Because if the message, the overbearing message is about, like having a travel lifestyle, living on credit cards, spending majority of what you earn, not planning for the future. Is it creating an environment where someone will be receptive to someone saying, hey, okay, listen, we need to have a family plan. We need to be strategic about what we're attaining. Or is there just a hope that, a rich guy is going to save me from what the mess that I've created for myself, or the environment that I've created for myself? Because we can't just look at the income and the Instagram lifestyle. Let's see those credit card statements, Let's see what they look like. Let's see what they look like beyond what we're seeing right now. Let's see how on a day-to-day basis you're managing. Because there was something that recently happened where there was a young lady who was living at someone else's house and was without a place to live, but then they're posting on Instagram them showing designer bags in the street and having this portrayal of someone of opulence, and I think that there's too much opulence on social media. Everyone's rich, everyone has a G-Wagon, everyone is stunting. Nobody wants to drive the Corolla, the Camry, the Altima. Those cars are for peasants. Those are for people who are not getting the bag, so they say. So I mean, I think that it's great, and I would love to find the well of the women who are ready to become in sync with someone, and cooperate and make things work. But it's really difficult with the socialization, man. Like, you have to have someone who's going against the grain, who's a contrarian from a social media standpoint, before I believe you'll actually find someone who wants to actually cooperate with you and make something happen.
Great points, man. Great points. Now let's real quick. We'll take a look. We will take a look and see what the what the women had to say on this very same topic. Let's see.
How would you feel if you were dating or with someone who made less money than you?
I have a hard time saying it's about money when I feel like it's more about ambition. Like, I totally agree. I have check marks, I have goals, I have things I want to accomplish. And if you don't want to have anything successful in your life, then I'm not in that range. Now, if you make less money than me, cool. I'm gonna make what I make. We can put it together.
Just as long as you're working.
Right.
Just as long as you're working.
And you care enough to, contribute.
Well, my husband and I are both actors.
Okay.
And so, money goes up and goes down and goes away and comes in in heaps, so there's always fluctuation. And from my perspective, it's not about how much money you make. If I'm making more than you, you have to be okay with that. Like, if that's going to stress you out to the point where it's, causing too much, pressure and stress on the relationship, then that's not good. You got to be
Right.
secure,
Right.
you know. And as long as you are doing what it is that you want to do and providing to the relationship in some kind of way, then, you know, who knows what it's going to be in a year from now,
Yeah.
or even a month or a week, you know, in our industry anyway.
That makes sense. I work creatively with my boyfriend on a bunch of different things, and he jokes about that a lot too. About like, oh yeah, you're gonna be the breadwinner for sure. He's so like, he's like my biggest fan for real. Anything I have my hands in, he's like, oh, it's gonna be gold. So he always jokes about that, and I think about it sometimes, like, well, I guess I could be, and I think I'd be okay with it. I feel like there is that. It can definitely be empowering, but there's like that ego thing that people sometimes have to work through. And like you said, if they're comfortable with it, if it's not a big deal, I think that's what kind of makes or breaks it.
Yeah.
So,
and as long as they're contributing something, and so, you know what I mean. Like my husband is a go-getter, and he sits on the couch 10 minutes, and he's like, oh, I'm like, chill out, babe. It's okay. Yeah, but you know, when I'm making more, he's, you know, building, and when he's making more, I'm building, and so it works out.
Okay.
Because we've been together for so long, like we started out with no job.
Right.
So like our first job was together. At one point, I had my degree, I was making more. But then now we have 3.5 kids. So it's all on you, babe. So, where you going today? What you gonna do? But I mean, it gets hard because, like I said, he's an artist. So just like you said, acting, it can go up, it can go down all at once. So he hustles hard.
Okay. So you gotta have your balance. That's so good.
All right. So you guys heard that. What you know, so I'll start with saying that for me, I was a little surprised at the take. I just thought it would be something. I expected a little something else. It's probably because of what I hear online. Let's face it, right? Than that. But Sam, what's your thoughts on hearing the the ladies' take?
You know, I think it sounds and it seems reasonable from what they're saying, but we wouldn't know though, right? We wouldn't know because like this is like almost like a doctored environment.
I agree.
One of the things that I've learned as a result of listening to KS, and really even just in my regular dating world, is this word about ambition, right?
Right.
So like it doesn't matter how much he earns today as long as he's ambitious, right? Because what if you're happy making $40,000, you know, like you're working a factory job or something like that, and $40,000 is what is is the max of what you're capable of earning, you know? Then at that point, are they willing to admit that it's not enough? Because I almost feel like the whole idea of ambition is it's somewhat elusive because it's saying that we want you to be constantly working towards becoming a rich guy. You know what I mean? Like, is there room for someone to be just a regular guy? My ambition level is me going to work 40 hours a week and I'm earning $40,000 a year. Because when I hear this, it doesn't matter how much he makes as long as he's ambitious. You're saying it's not enough because where he's at today is not satisfactory. But as long as you're working towards becoming that rich guy that we want to have, we're okay with it. I mean, that's what I heard, and that's what I heard from the first young lady. And I don't know. I think it's interesting, and we would only know the dynamic inside their personal relationship, because along the lines of what Tim said, whenever the person who's earning more money is spending money, right? And then here you are as the person who makes less money than them, and you're saying, hold on. Now, this money that you're spending is going against the plan that we have. Then I've observed when people are not paying attention, I've observed people saying, well, hold on now. I'll make this money, so I'm going to determine what happens with it. So it's not earning that's the issue. It's the attitude that comes behind it That's the real issue. Not the money, but it's the attitude.
Right.
I totally agree with everything Sim said. And now, so the first woman, she made it very clear. If he ain't ambitious, she's out of there. The second woman, I could say I give her a little bit of grace because she had said, based on what they do, is some up and downs, and she's still around. So she may be okay. The next woman, she was the dangerous one because she said, I think I would work it out. See, you either know or you don't know.
You're right.
And the one in the red, she didn't say anything. And then the one at the end, the one had the 3 kids. I think she's in for the long haul. I think she's a little bit more locked in because she has kids. She's been in the work environment and she gave up her work to manage her kids. That's critical. Because remember, she said at one point she was making more than her husband. But she said when she had the kids, she gave it all up to take care of the kids. And she looked at him and said, now, what you going to do? So I think out of everyone, she's the one that would stand the test of time, at least in my opinion. I don't know them enough. I'm just going off of what they stated throughout that session. And I agree with totally everything Sim said, because it's easy to say all this stuff until the fire is right there. And when somebody give you course correct, and now how are you going to respond being the breadwinner of the relationship, especially if the breadwinner is the one that's wasting money or not using money to the best benefit of the family and the family goal.
Right. Let me this is interesting because I literally just thought of this, and this isn't a shot at all, but it's a funny comparison, because when Sim said that, he said you can like we said, it's a controlled environment, right? So I agree with that. So we can only take them at face value, and that's what I do, right? We take it at face value, and then we let you prove us wrong. So the reason I like that is it made me just think, and I haven't even looked into it, but let's think about the manosphere for a second, right? And then think about all the women supporters of the manosphere. Now, we would have to call on, like, I call O'Shea like the grandfather of the manosphere, right? I mean, Black manosphere. So he's just been around, since the early days. But the point I'm making is, do we think, the women supporters were, if that's what they believe in and believe men weren't being, men don't get the credit they deserve, they should be treated better, society looks down on them, were they around before the manosphere, right? Because if you felt that way out in society, wouldn't you have basically, been there kind of doing that same thing? You wouldn't have had to wait until men came, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying? So the thing I'm saying is basically, it's like with these women, the conclusion is we have to take them at face value, but it does make you wonder, right? If you never can tell why someone's doing what they're doing. And we have to ask those women, obviously, I think most of them, they appear to be married, right? So it is what it is. But back to the manosphere, are those women, the women that go for those men, are they married? And many times you'll see that they're not. So it draws this conclusion. I think this is what happens out in society. You hear certain things, right? But when it gets down to brass tacks, it becomes a challenge. And that's why I think when the intentional millionaire, mentioned that, I think that's not, I'm not going off of, I think. There's not, like, hey, do you want kids? I think that's asking for trouble. I mean, that's just asking for trouble. You need to be very sure about, these types of things. But for me, I've never thought much about this, and here's the reason why. For me, now I'm a believer in God, right? So for me, it just comes down, you become one, right? It's a household. So honestly, this whole idea that people have of, Like I literally hear people like, she's got her money, I got my money. That's foreign to me. Now, my wife and I have our own bank account, right? We have a joint bank account, but we have our own bank account that we put money into. We both know what's going in there. We plan it out, what's going into our separate bank accounts to buy gifts, do all kinds of things, different things we want to do. But just this idea of two people living in the same house, they're married, one is poor and one's got money. I'm foreign to that. I have no clue what it makes no sense to me. But I literally hear people that live that way. So I say that to say I also think the way that you were raised, the way what you believe is also going to be where a lot of this comes down to. Because I can just tell you, as a married man, because you should be somewhat paired up with like people or people that it fits well together based on who you all are. Just the idea that the focus would be who makes more. It just doesn't. I just don't think. I think you have bigger stuff that you're going to have to worry about. Because here's the deal: when you get together, you already know, right? This whole thing, we kind of look at these things as if we don't know where people are headed. I mean, someone already knows what job you do, right? I know if you don't have a degree, right? You're working at this place. You don't really have, based on your age. Well, let's just say you're 30. What have you been doing? Working here for 10 years. Okay, you've not progressed at all. I already know you don't plan on moving up. So I can already say you're going to probably get your 3% every year, and that's it. Versus someone who's like, oh, you've been in 5 different states. Oh, you started out here and moved up. We have enough evidence to tell who people are. We just let other things like the bed sheets and all kinds of other stuff probably override us, and then we get in a situation where we're a little pissed because of the choice we made. That's the way I look at it. So I think most of these issues, they're not internet issues. They're real issues. But I just don't know if people are doing the deep dive they should up front or whatever. Because, like I said, Tim picked up on them context clues really well. So anything else on the topic, guys?
So I want to add this because I agree with you somewhat, but I also disagree with you.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I know what you're saying, but sometimes even people that comes from good backgrounds, 2-parent households, they still divert away. And I think we got to factor in that people do change based on their new environments and new surroundings.
Right.
Because most people don't know themselves. Most people don't take time in understanding themselves. So what most people do is they look for something else and somebody else. They end up getting married, but now they realize they learn because what most people tell you after they divorce, I learned so much about myself.
Yep. Yeah.
So that
absolutely.
means that they came in not knowing about themselves. Because I told Uncle Stu when I was talking with Uncle Stu, one of the things I said is because so many people don't have an identity.
Right.
And because of that, so you can still come from a great household, great morals, great values, spiritually sound, but you still cannot have identity.
So I agree with that.
So I say, I get it, but and then I also think too, your environment and your social circle is a direct result or reflection of the type of outcome of what you're going to be for yourself. Why do I say that? Because one of the things you mentioned was the women that support the manosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of those women, you say, well, before the manosphere, was some of those women, was they there? Did they support? Did they want to speak for the man? Well, some of them may not have been aware. So just like some men became aware, some women wasn't necessarily aware. Because the challenge we both have is I always say you have to have a social group of friends that's willing to be honest with you. If you have a social group of friends that just allow the bad stuff the wrong stuff they go on. They don't correct you. They don't say anything. They're not willing to either lose the friendship or delay the friendship, meaning y'all stop talking for a while for whatever, because you standing for what's right. Most people don't know you don't need them as a friend.
Right.
Because I don't want nobody around me that's not going to correct me if I'm wrong, or they see something wrong, or they see something not going the right way, or they know that I'm better than whatever type of result I'm outputting.
Right.
Because that's the only way. How else do I level up or grow up or understand stuff that I'm not even aware myself? Even that, even if you could spend all the time being self-aware, things like that, it's always still area of improvement.
Absolutely.
And then the last thing is, just because a person at a place, see what the challenge is, people forget about is all based off of perspective. So just like if Bill Gates spend 10%, it's all relative. He spent 10%, I spend 10%. My 10% is going to be more of a hit compared to his 10% because he has a lot more to spend. Okay. But what people tend to miss is, because when people say ambitious, that's why I love what Sim said, because it's so ambiguous. When people say ambition, let's just say you could take a school teacher that's teaching the school system. They get a very incremental step up in pay increase. They've been there for 20 years. Well, that's no different than somebody at McDonald's that don't get promoted, that's happy with what they're doing.
Right.
When you really think about it. But it's all relative. So you got to know, what are you doing to continue to move the ball forward if that's what you want to do? I think what people really got to sit back and ask, and I'll be quiet because I can go on, but I think what people really need to sit back and ask, if that person is happy with what they're doing, then is that okay for them? Because what do we say? We want people to be happy, great morals, great character, but a person that's happy with their 40,000 working at the factory, but we still ragging that person because they haven't leveled up. They need to be more ambitious, but they may be the most joyous. They may be, matter of fact, they normally end up being the best parents.
Right. Yeah.
Believe it or not. But so I think that's really why the conversation really needs to be had. And I think that's the flip side and the danger of social media.
Right.
Because social media is pushing a perspective that still might not be the best perspective based on what type of outcome you're looking for. Then we still missed it. One statistic that state that the happiest income they found based on a survey now, I can't remember the quote. I just remember reading the article, and they said it was 80,000. Those people generally seem to be the happiest at 80,000 and being able to raise family, take care of family, things like that. So,
right. And I just want to clarify, it was to one point, so that's why I just want to clarify, when I was talking about the women in the manosphere, I literally meant it's not a dig, because it's not about them being on YouTube. The question is that's why I can't judge it. It's really, I guess, about, were they advocate, even before having channels and stuff, was that their sentiment, right? Knowing someone's sentiment on something deep down, like, the woman would have to ask herself that, did I care about how men were treated in this stuff prior, before people seeing me, right? Because so many people do stuff to be seen. We don't really know the truth. And where we do agree, actually, yeah, I don't think it's background. I don't think, coming from a certain, now I think coming from a certain background can help. I mean, your upbringing definitely can help, but I definitely believe, and I'm going to go ahead and add JC to the show. How's it going?
Very good, very good. Sorry, guys, I won't be able to stay too long. I can say about 10 minutes. As you can see, I have my jacket here. I have to leave at some point, but
no, you're good, man. I'll wrap my part up, and then what I'm going to do, I'll just real quickly brief you if you haven't seen some other parts, and then you hop right in.
Yeah, I was listening on my way in, so
okay.
Cool. For the most part, I get the gist of how the flow is going.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so what I was saying is basically, I do think when you talk about relationships and you talk about money, the biggest thing is, upfront talking about it. But one thing that you can never tell how people are going to change throughout marriage, because we are who we are. We haven't changed yet, right? But the clues are, I do know if I investigate and we date and I do know how you've been living, how you have handled your finances, because you can't fake those. I mean, you could try to fake those things, but those are the things you just have to try your best to figure out that type of information. And then after that, it is what it is. I don't, even my wife, I mean, I was investing, my wife never knew we were going to go down this crypto hole. She didn't know that I was going to invest to the level I was. And if you're set up with someone who's going to stress and just every dollar you spend, it could be catastrophic. But fortunately, she knew I had bigger goals at least, but to the extent, probably not. So those are things that are, extremely important, because let's face it, the days of a man coming home, the wife stays at home, a man comes home and hands his check to her. Those days are over, right? So, no, JC, welcome to the show, man. You go ahead, let us know, just let us know your takes on, is it okay for a man, for a woman to make more than a man? And just your thoughts in general when it comes to, finances and relationships.
Of course. First of all, I'm so mad today, man. This is one topic that, I'm so mad that I can't stay longer to talk about this, because this is a great topic. Great choice, Perry. Great choice.
Absolutely.
And to keep it short, guys. So the way I see it is, and I was listening, and I agree a lot with what Sia and Tim has to say on this topic. The way I rationalize this topic is, should a man afford to date? Can a man afford to date a woman that makes more? Yes, of course. You're saying, but should you do it? To me, in my personal opinion, no. I don't think men should. And here's why. I like what you said earlier, Perry. You were saying that like your wife didn't know that you were going to go on this crypto journey. It was the same for me. My ex-wife didn't know, but
Right.
But she was the type of one who's very, like, not just frugal, but very, like, careful about how she spends her money, right? And then she sees my money as her money. She sees, like, my money as our money, right? And then
Right.
she expects me to put certain decision that's going to be best for her based on her mindset, right?
Right.
Now, my mindset is totally different. Mine is the ambitious, but the ambitious that's willing to take risk to get to that result, to that reward, right? So
Right.
when I first met her, that's not the pitch I give. And to be honest, just like we were talking about, you don't know yourself. Well, I didn't know that side of me, right? But over 15 years of being together, you grow to be someone else. You discover yourself more. You're like, okay, I'm gonna take certain choices, and you make that.
Right.
And now here's the thing. While we're adding on this topic, and this is why I love this topic, because for me, throughout my whole relationship with my ex-wife, she was making more than me, and not just more by like 10,000. We're talking about in some points almost double what I was making.
Right.
But the way we rationalize that very early on, I was telling you, I don't care how much you make, as long as when in my house, I'm the captain, right? I'm the man, I'm the captain.
Very important.
And
Right.
that dynamic worked until the baby comes in. Now, when the baby comes in, her maternal instinct comes in, and she's like, well, based on the decisions you're making, I don't feel you're making the best for our family, and I have more money. I believe I can make better decisions, right? And from that perspective, she's like, well, the lack of respect comes in. She doesn't respect your authority. She doesn't respect your decision, and I'm no longer the captain. And there's no way it's gonna work with two captains in the same ship. There's no way that's gonna work.
Very true. Absolutely true.
Just to add another point on that is, I have my own auntie. She's been a doctor for years. She's also in a situation where her husband is making like less than her, right? She's always been making nearly triple what her husband makes as a doctor. But she's basically the alpha personality of that relationship, and my uncle is the beta, and they work very well. They've been married over 40 years. it works well. He understands his roles, he accepts it, he's proud of it. Me, that's not me, but that works for him, and they're happy together, right? But knowing yourself first, as we were talking about the intentional millionaire, and choosing a partner that can has the same vision with you is definitely the way to go. And the reason why I'm saying a man should not date a woman that's making less than her is because there's an aspect of respect that has to happen, and sooner or later the woman that makes more will feel entitled to make some decision, because she's like, well, my decision so far allowed me to make more. She's gonna evaluate life with that, and she's gonna be like, well, my decision allowed me to make more. Your decision is making you almost like a loser to me. At some point, sooner or later, is gonna catch up. And then, but with that said, I have a warning for women out there, especially the one making a lot of money, because the reason why I'm saying mention a date is because the modern women, especially in North America, is not feminine enough to allow that balance to be like, I'm okay to work out and make as much as possible on the corporate world, but when I'm home, I'm the feminine type. I'm the assistant to my captain. You see what I'm saying? That dynamic, it's rare that it can happen. But and the feminine women of modern era in North America, it's unlikely that you're going to see it, right? Shout out to you.
Right.
But you may find it. It may be a unicorn, but it's not the general size. So from that perspective, I would approach it at, okay, put your eggs in a basket where you're most likely going to find that dynamic, because that dynamic doesn't work. But the warning I have is, the reason why I cannot make it a long time today is because I'm dating a new girl and she hurt herself. She has this like huge pain in her arm, and she can't do anything with her arm.
Right.
By the time I got to her place, she was like on the floor crying, like she needed my help, and I was there to help her, and I have to go back to help her, right?
Right.
And throughout the whole day, man, throughout the whole afternoon, I was thinking about this. Yeah, like just this weekend, I was reading a report saying 45% of North American women will be single and childless. And single first and childless. Now imagine the one that makes more money, the one that has that alpha mentality, the one that won't be able to have that dynamic, right? Imagine all them. And then I'm looking at this woman. This is she's 35, but she still look young. And then she has this pain where she needs assistance. She needs someone's help in the household to help her out. Now imagine we're extrapolate that 30 years from now, where all of these people that are seeing this thing right now, and we're talking about 45% by 2030 are going to be single. Imagine all of them being 50, 65, being more need of assistance. Who's going to be there to help them? And I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, we're going to have a major problem. We're going to have a major problem because, man, it's just like I could see it in her eyes. She was genuinely so happy to have at least someone she can rely on to call.
Right.
And I feel like the way we're going right now, it's we're heading towards many people will be single when they're going to need it the most. And my ex-wife now, she was making more money. She's still making more money. She believes she has more decision. But 2 months after we separated, she was also in that same situation, and I wasn't coming. I wasn't there to help her out.
Right.
But 15 years, so throughout all 15 years of being together, despite me making less money, I was always there to help her out. So interesting dynamic, interesting topic. I know I've said a lot because I can't really stay too long, but I'm curious to hear what you got to say before I go.
No, I think that's a great point, man. What my struggle is, man, I don't, and I really never try to put my situation on other people. My situation. I don't, and also I'm probably not typical, right? I was raised by my mother, right? So it's not like I always tell people, like, where'd you learn how to be a husband? Uncle Phil. I mean, for real. I mean, and then men in my church, I mean, and then you just know, I learned the stuff that you do, right? The appearance of things like that, right? So my situation's not typical, but I mean, I did have men there for me. I always have my uncle, things like that, but I don't know what's not real. That's the thing. It's like, that's what's so difficult is, you look at TV, right? And sitcoms are dying, but you look at sitcoms, you see one dynamic. You look at social media, it's so far the other direction. Mine's not either of them, right? So it just gets difficult to tell how bad is it really, and right, and what is the best, what is the best fit? But also for me, right, part of it for me probably too that's different than maybe a lot of people financially, because we're pretty reserved and we've done really well. A lot of money. I've had years where I've been able to buy more into crypto than maybe, I'm not gonna say two individuals, but where one individual makes, right? And it don't affect the household at all. And that's all. It literally, if that just blew up, it would make no difference. Now nobody's gonna be happy about it, but so I'm sure. But I've also been in a state where I was trying to invest, and if it went south, I was going to be in trouble. And I don't recommend that to anyone, but I've been there too. And I can tell you right now, where I married at that point, it would have been, now I wouldn't do that today, but had I done that, and I know there's a time I would have, it would have caused problems. It just would have. But I'm so headstrong, it would have been very difficult. So I think also my age has probably helped with that, right? There's probably cons to getting married at 33. And there's probably pros to getting married at 33, right? So I think all that plays a definite part because you're more established, right? So you can both afford to do anything.
For a man, there is no con marrying.
No, yeah. Well, no. For men, it's different. But I still think. Well, I'm more so talking about waiting to that age, right?
Yeah.
Not being 25, 24. Because you're more apt to make some decisions that are probably not going to work out as best for two or whatever. So, but yeah, man, I think you make some. I think you make some really, really good points. And I think at the end of it, what I'll add is, I do think people just need to be real with themselves. Because I do think where the money can really get people jacked up is if your stronghold is someone making less than you or someone making more than you, you're leaving a lot of stuff on the table that's probably more important. I mean, because are you a right? There's just so much other stuff that's got to be right. I just think that's got to be a part of the overall of the bigger conversation.
Yeah, and I think team. I think, and I want to hear Team C on this as well. But I think it's that's what I'm saying. I like a lot what Team was saying earlier. Is like at the end of the day, it's not even about money. It's really about how the team works together, working on the same vision, and that's basically how it works. If everyone accepts their role, and then you work towards the same goal, whether one, because throughout life, one will make more money. Another one will make less, then vice versa, right? It's a different roles. It will continue. But if you still had that same vision, it doesn't change much, right? It's just different hands that has to do the same thing. But it's that's why I like a lot what Tim was saying. And that's what I'm learning now, to be honest with you. I have to go through a marriage to learn it. But, that's what I'm learning now. And now with the girl I'm in right now, is we're synchronizing the same vision, and it wouldn't change much if she would end up making more money 1 year, because she knows, like, okay, you're the captain, and I'll follow your leads. And if the ship sinks, then we'll sink with the ship together, right? That's the mentality you need to have with a partner. And if you have a partner like that, yeah, at that point you could go ahead and date her, even if she's making more money.
Right.
Real quick for me, I don't have much to add to that, JC. That was dead on. I mean, because you gave a reason why you believe men shouldn't date a woman that makes more, and that goes back to what Sim talked about, because it's what they say is one thing, but what they do is another. And the reason why I that's critical is because I think that's why you have to mesh well so important, because when you both change, you'll change together. And when you change together, you'll feel like you have more value together. And when you feel like you have more value together, you're willing to work through whatever you need to work through to try to make it work the best way you can make it work. But I think when you look at money as the deciding factor and you don't have other factors, that's where it gets confusing. And I hate to say it, but it's more for women that look at that than men. Why is that? Because I mean, men don't really get caught up on what a woman makes. That's just really what it is. I mean, it
Right.
really is. Men don't go around asking, what you do, how much you make, this, that, and the third. And I just say this for anybody that's watching. The key is find you a woman that regardless of what you do in the money, she more or less want to just sit and look in your face and not do anything. That's when you really got someone that really just like you for you. Just to keep on them. So that's all I got to add, though.
Right. You got anything, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, you guys said a lot, and I agree with a lot of what you all said. The thing that's really important. I don't know. You said that you wouldn't date a woman that makes more money. I don't know about you guys. Listen, I'm waiting for Stedman to fall off. You know what I mean? I'm waiting for Stedman to fall off. Listen,
right.
Me and Oprah are moving to Texas, man. Listen, Texas, no prenup, right?
Right.
Texas, no prenup. After 45, I think it's like after 45 days, you guys are common law married. You know what I mean? So we're gonna move to Texas, and we're just gonna set up shop over there, man, with no prenup. And I'm gonna give her the Stedman 2.0 experience, and then we're just gonna go from there.
Yeah.
So you're gonna let her sit on your face?
Listen, man, listen. We're gonna be petting the dogs. We're gonna be real friendly. We're gonna be doing a lot, And,
right.
I'm just gonna be looking at you guys from my little hill up there in the hills,
So I gotta jump out, but I'll be listening. Here on my way out, and also, but I gotta say this, man. Yeah, you're right, Tim. It's not, men doesn't necessarily really look at the money. The whole reason why the word money is coming for is not really the money that they're looking at. It's more the respect that they want from the woman, right? If there is no money, they get respect, man. They're fine. But however, on the women's side, somehow they're just naturally inclined to go with someone that can provide more, that can make them feel safe, and then they translate that with, okay, more money means more safety for me. So that's basically why the money comes in. But at the end of the day, all comes down to respect, and if that is there, then they will work out. But with that said, guys, I'll have to go, but I'll be listening. And again, great topic, very great topic.
Absolutely. You're going to like the next thing we're going to talk about dating. Millennials. And it's an article, a Yahoo article. No doubt, man. Thanks for coming up here, man.
Salute, JC. Always a great honor to have you on the panel.
Absolutely.
You too, guys.
Do your thing, man. Do your thing. She takes care of you, man, and you take care of her, man. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Shut up. Ciao.
Absolutely.
Salute.
Yeah, so I thought I thought that was good. I thought that was good conversation. I think the last thing I'll say on that is I do think though that is where and it depends on their level. As far as where if you do have the same values, my wife and I do, it helps because I can tell you, I mean, money doesn't have anything to, I mean, as far as who's head of his household, money has nothing to do with it. It just doesn't. But those are things you also talk about, right? Now, that's still a gauge on that, right? Some people, they move from their beliefs, right? But you would like to think that I would like to think, and this could be completely wrong, you hope by your time you're in your 30s, if you still have those held beliefs by the time you're in your 30s, religious-wise anyway, right? You for the most part should hold to those. Statistically, you normally do. Now, not to say people don't pick and choose, right? But if you can get to the core, so all this still goes to getting to the core of what really people really mean, right? And are they about what they say they are, which tends to be the biggest issue, right? We got a lot of imposters. So
What I'll say, Perry, though, one of the things that, and Tim can maybe speak to this or maybe disagree with it. One of the things that I think ends up being elusive, similar to this whole ambitious man thing, right, is one thing I want to make sure that I express as a disagreement with you about, like, the people who maybe are now the women who are the allies of the manosphere and are speaking, or maybe a little bit more receptive today. We have to also be honest and say that, like, 5 years ago, your logic was different than today. You know what I mean? Like, your set of ideals and your beliefs were different 5 years ago. And if we go back even 10 more years, they were different, right? So we have to allow room for people to grow. One of the things that I've begun to understand, though, is that as people grow, like, they want to go to what feels like home, right? So if the father was in the house and he had a certain sort of temperament, right? So it's familiar for her to receive, direction, and that's clear and concise and direct, right? And if she didn't have that relationship at home, in order for her to be able to build those muscles, to be able to handle someone who's direct and expressing exactly how they feel, then it becomes a little bit more difficult for her to receive a man who comes with that energy. And it can also be harder for her to be able to identify what her ideal mate looks like, because if you don't have an example of someone that you idolized from a younger age, of what practices that they really demonstrated or showed you, then it makes it more difficult for them to say, wow, that person is just like my father. When it becomes something elusive, like that whole idea of ambition, like, what does ambition really look like? Like, if I was to see it, would I be able to identify it? Or does it look like just one opportunity leading to another? For me, the best opportunities that I've come across recently have been things that I've kind of put by the wayside, and I've regarded them as a temporary state, but then I found out they were the best opportunity for me. You know what I mean? So it's about being able to identify and say, hey, like, this is my guy. But if they've never had a guy when they were younger that they idolized, it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to say, okay, this is my guy. Otherwise, they're chasing the next best thing,
Yeah, and see, where I have a problem is, let me compare this, right? And this is the same, this is anything. I used the manosphere, but the women in the manosphere, it could be the manosphere, it could be crypto. See, now I talk about crypto on here, right? But when I'm not on the camera, what am I doing? It's crypto. If I pull it up right now, what'd you do this weekend? I made a couple trades. I made a trade on Friday. I was in it for about 3 hours, 4 coins, made about 100. It was $112 to be exact. I'm doing the same thing, not on camera. The problem in today's world is we don't know. It's like you get on a camera and there's dollars attached to it. We don't know who's really, because and this is not even the black manosphere. I know people because I go back to the history of their channel and I've seen them move from this to this where the money's at. Like, and it is it's women advocating for men, but it's not black women, right? But I've seen the shift, like you were talking about, like we're talking about tattoos, and all of a sudden, all day long, all you do is talk about how men are treated wrong. They're not. It's like, it is the shift for the dollars, or did you really feel that way? Because tattoos at some point were more important to you, right? So that's why I said I use that example, because we just don't know. And for example, we're not pulling people to the carpet, right? All I could do is, if you ask, was I could get my phone out, show you what coins I traded, tell you the information I traded off of, and show you. But because we don't have that, so I just wanted to add that. But I agree with you 100%. We do have to give people, room to grow. And a perfect example of that, right? Now, the same thing I just told you, I could take and I could say MTR is a good example. MTR started out as a crypto channel. But what I know about MTR is MTR didn't just shift in that direction. MTR has a lot of old stuff people didn't watch, right? Trying to help men. And so it gradually, like, now, once you're in that position, you know, you're going to make money. It's not about that. But I saw his gradual shift. So he was already there in the early stages and faded into it. So I more so just want to use that example because to me, the greatest problem that we have today is not being able to tell if people are who they say they are. But what you can do, you can get on you go to my Facebook and you look back in 2005, it's the same. You're going to see that you're going to see the same type of, I'm the same type of guy. Now this is almost 20 years later, but I just mean at a quick glance, right? It's not all this made up stuff for the world to see. A couple posts here and there, not self-absorbed. I might get on there once a month. It's just how it is. So no, I'm with you guys 100%. I think we do need to give people room to grow, but that is where, for those who aren't married, I have the most concern is I don't know how in the heck, God, I don't know how people are able to discern what's real and what's not. Because, I mean, everything is about image now, right? So it's just so hard to tell, are people faking it till they make it and stuff like that. So
I think before Tim goes, I think that it's a little bit clear what you were saying. You're saying more so is the person that we're seeing today really subscribing to the things that they're saying, or they doing it because it's the hot thing to speak on today.
Yeah, and I probably wasn't very clear because that's why I said it really was not a dig at the manosphere at all. That's just a place, or the women in the manosphere. That's just a place, obviously right now, where there's a lot of pressure on certain individuals, and it's just so it's another place where we just don't know, and it's where I can easily, right? I'm able to look and tell people like Courtney Michelle. I'm able to look at her because I've heard her experience and see how she arrived to where she changed who she was because she didn't want to be a modern woman, right? So it's one of those things where you just see it's all over the place. But yeah, so me, it's more so about just our people who they say they are. And there's people I know they are, like Courtney Michelle, I was naming based off of what information I have. And then there's those people who we just don't know, right? So, and I don't know how someone who's dating, I mean, I've been married almost 5 years. I don't even know how you decipher anymore. I don't even know anymore. So absolutely. Tim?
I just think it really goes back to we got to stop putting emphasis on other people and put more emphasis on ourselves. I think the more you become aware of yourself, the more you start to discerning things better, because you key in on key things because you learn that the most important form of communication is listening, but then listening and then monitor actions with what's being said. And I think a lot of people, that's the great thing and the dangerous thing about online and social media is there's no barrier to entry. Long as you got an email, you can set up an account, or you got a phone number, you can get online and start, Instagram pictures. You can start having the reels. You can start YouTube. So I think it's really not about the individual. It's really about the persona of the person in front of the camera. I think it's more about the individual being able to discern because they took time to understand self. And when you understand self, you start to pick up on traits that can carry you through life in other areas.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what really is the challenge. And then too, I think too many times, just going back to what you say, is people just, the problem is, and I'm just going to say it, it's because the world is full of sheep. The school system teach people to be sheep. So because of that, most people stop learning after high school. College don't count. That's just theory. That don't count. You just read, you understand, you take a test, and then you get a grade at the end. If you're good at memorizing and taking tests, then you're going to get cum laude and you're going to graduate. But you could still go you could go through college and the rest of your life and you're not really learning life.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think it's more critical, important things that we got to hone in on. We got to stop all this confusion and really start really teaching this stuff, because that's really the important stuff. To be able to discern people, to be able to pick up on vibes, to be able to really start understanding and interacting with your gut feeling. When you do those things, things get a little bit easier to be able to discern stuff.
Yeah,
But I don't think a lot of people do that, because it's easy to just follow something, and then when it go wrong, blame it on them. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Let me pop up something real quick. Let's see. All right. So, what I want to point out right here is, so single millennials are going into debt because of expensive dating habits. And some have had their cards decline on a first date. Now, of course, this is just the headline of the article. It says, here are 3 simple, cheap date ideas. We're not even going to get into that. Really just want to use this for the headline, and then also point out. So as this says, about 77% of the 1,578 U.S. consumers, asked about dating habits, said they would find dating easier with more money. Now, I'm not surprised about that. Nearly 1 in 5 said high inflation caused them to go on fewer dates. So really, this article, I mean, I don't know that any of you all are, are really surprised about that. In terms of, what the headline of the article says, I would think anyone dating would think that having more money would help, right? Just like with anything else. But I still think it's an interesting article. So, I just wanted to touch on it. So let me pop this up real quick. So, what do you guys say to that? And here's the deal. When they're talking dating, they said single millennials, right? So I think we can separate this thing out, right? But my opinion as a married man on this is still, I still go on dates, right? So I can tell you, whether it's, that steak dinner, right, or whatever, still costs me money. So for me, no, I'm not surprised about this, but looking back, way back, there was a time when I was so broke. Now this is like 20, right? I'm going to take you on a date and I'm going to act like I'm not hungry, and I'm going to go eat like crazy when I get home. Call it what you want. That was a long time ago. But by the time I got to like mid-20s, I'm not doing that. If I can't afford it, we're just not going. And
where were you going though, Perry? Tell us the place, man.
So this would have been like, back then, this would have been like a, maybe Outback or O'Charlie's, something like that. Mid-tier, Logan's Roadhouse, something like that, right? This would have been like a mid-tier back then.
So tell me what she was getting though. What was she getting?
Well, that's the thing, right? I was praying, and I'm like, you can, get whatever. I'm praying it's simple, right? Back in the day, but I would be like, dang, man, I wish she hadn't got that, but whatever. And see, how much I eat might be based on what you get, because I'm treating you out, right? That's how it used to be. But this was like I said, this was probably 20 years old. But by the time I hit mid-20, it's like I'm only gonna do what I can do, right? I'm not rolling like that. So are you cool with it? So really, it was just based on, but also by then, I was making some money also, so I was doing better. So, so I just want to point that out to say I've kind of been through this, before. So my take on this is, while they said single millennials, I'm talking about this 20 years ago. So, has it changed that? Has it really changed that much? Is it where we're headed in the economy? I mean, I don't know, but I do tend to think what has changed, because they're talking about, they're going into debt. No. See, where I disagree with this, no, they're in debt. That's the problem. They're going into debt because of expensive dating. No, you're in debt so bad and you're still trying to date. That's like the debt isn't driving you. The date's not driving you into debt. Your finances are so jacked up and you're still trying to date. You're already in debt. Look, because let's not act like your credit card was on zero and then you started dating. Nah, your credit card, you had $20 left on it anyway and still try to go on a date. That's why because remember, it got declined on the first debt. Is your limit $100? Nah, it's a couple thousand and it was already maxed out already. So that's my take on seeing this. So this is more of a headline to me, but I still think it's something interesting we can talk about and just those habits and what people should be looking for. So what are you guys' takes on just, as far as the headline, kind of just the general conversation about it?
I'll go, man. Listen, it's rough out here, man. It's rough out here, man. Listen, if I was, it's really difficult. You said that you were going back to your 20s, man. I've said it. This is one thing that's been consistent with me is I'm looking for my finance bay, my fire bay, financial independence, retire early bay. Someone
right.
who's prioritizing, like Tim mentioned earlier, who's prioritizing becoming in sync and executing a unified plan. It's tough out here because like this goes back to the socialization, when the dating culture is a reflection of what Instagram is showing. People are showing drinks at these rooftop bars, at these rooftop establishments. They're going to the steakhouses with the $100 plates, and it's just like another destination, And I'd say that there are a lot of guys who are not honest about the situation. I'll say it. I've said it to people that I was dating before, and I said that your lifestyle is way beyond what I can fund or do today. You better off going to someone else, allowing them to fund your lifestyle, and let them spend all their money on you. But I'm not in a position to do that, and that's not what I'm prioritizing. But it's not popular for me to have that sentiment because they're asking you about how broke you are, and it's all sort of jabs and barbs that you end up having to deal with as a result of that. I've been fortunate enough to actually have a guy who's 20 years my senior, and he can give me the game. He can tell me when he goes out, his primary goal is not to fund all of the drinks for his lady. They're going to have a conversation that's normal, but his primary goal is not to see how many drinks she can get, not to show how much money he has. And he's a millionaire as well, so it's helpful to have those as a sounding board, having people like that, because if you're listening to social media and social media is telling you, if you're not able to take her to the rooftop bar, if you're not able to take her to the local steakhouse, then you're a buster, you're some kind of loser. And so I don't think that's true. I disagree with you about the whole not having no money, that you shouldn't date at all, because there are people out there who are in a worse financial situation than you, and they found a way to be in sync and to work together with someone. So I don't know.
Let me clear that up.
Love.
No, I'm not saying I wasn't saying not date at all, because I don't believe that. No, I want to clarify that. No, I'm not saying not date at all. I'm just saying if you're at the position of maxing your credit card out, I'm just mean from a standpoint of you shouldn't be allowing dates to take you further. I think you can do all kinds of dates. You're going to have to find the right person who's cool, whether it's walk in the park, those free types of activities. No, I don't think you should not date at all. I don't. That's not my sentiment at all. I just want to clarify that.
Copy that. But yeah, I mean, listen. If you're listening live and if you're listening in the future, we need the ladies who are financially savvy, interested in dating a man who's prioritizing future finances. He may not have the full bag today, but he's prioritizing your life and his life going into the future. We need those ladies to form a line, right? We need y'all to form a line because we need to find the place where all of you all are gathering so we can make sure we can pick from the best, pick from the best, because I think that a lot of the conversation right now is about how much money you can spend on someone for dating. And I think that it's a losing situation because you're not prioritizing the future. You're only focused on what's happening today. And that person might not talk to you next week. In a month, they probably pretend like you don't exist. And here you are going broke, spending money on a credit card, accruing interest. And this person is not even here as long as the period that it takes for you to pay it off, So I think it's very, very much worth considering that if we can prioritize simple dates, it'd be a great start to us being able to move in a direction where we can be together and work towards something together. What do you think, Tim?
I'm gonna say, and I got a different opinion. I think it's the man's fault. Because I think if you're going to offer a woman for a date, then you should choose the location. One, you showing you assertive. Two, it's a way for you to start gauging if she even for you, because you shouldn't even be picking an expensive restaurant. You don't know them. Like, I don't understand why people feel like they got to go out above and beyond for somebody you don't know. I'm not doing it. So if I offer to take a woman on a date, it's going to be something simple and quick. And I tell them, listen, we're not going to do nothing crazy. We're going to sit down because I want to have a conversation because I want to get to know you. And if she ain't into that, I ain't into her, because that ain't what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for somebody that's interested in me materializing and flashing and doing all this stuff to get her to like me. No, you're going to like me for me. And I'm going to help set the tone. Why? It's because if it starts wrong, it ends wrong. So if you start feeling like you got to do all this stuff to impress, that means if you end up with her, you're going to continue how to do all this stuff to impress, because you never had the situation, the relationship based off of something fundamental. I just want to believe that. And I think that's the man's fault. Regardless of what social media is doing, you got to set yourself apart from the group. That means that you got to set the pace and set the tone. It's nobody else's job to do that. It ain't the woman's job to do that, especially if you the one asking her out. Like, I don't understand that.
Well, she's accompanying you on whatever event that you're doing, So it's not that he's selecting a place that he can't afford. It's the whole idea of you're a loser if you're not taking her to this place. You're a loser if you want to. I mean, I've had people tell me, I'm not getting all dolled up and dressed up for us to just have drinks. You know what I mean? Because they feel like their presentation, what they put into their presentation, is worth more than just meeting up for drinks. That they need to be doing it for a lavish dinner or something nice or something like that. And there's just like that video we were watching earlier, right? It's about really listening in, not just what they're saying, but more so the things that they're doing after they said what they're saying. And then you'll be able to really tell that, yeah, this person, it's a downward spiral if I sit up here and I stick around in this situation.
So and so I agree with that somewhat, because still, that's right there. To me, that's a red flag. I'm just saying, that's a red flag. If she's telling you she's not going to get dialed up to get drinks, what she's saying is, to me, how I interpret that is, you're not important enough for me to bring my best.
Well, I'm not saying
I know, that. I know you're not saying that. I'm just saying you gave a scenario, so I'm breaking down that scenario. If a woman says that, I'm trying to teach this to another man, that what she's really saying, to me, my interpretation is, if a man is in that situation, a woman states that, then what she's really saying is, you're not that setting and me getting to know you is not valuable enough for my time.
Exactly.
So really, that's a red flag. So it's
Yep.
really you saving yourself some headache.
Yeah. What I'm saying is us men have to be able to use those as key indicators.
Exactly.
There's no longer a need for you to proceed any further, right?
Exactly.
So I'm not saying that because she says she's not getting dolled up for drinks, that now you're going to take her to a place you can't afford. If she says that, it's letting you know this person is not considering you, what you have going on, or your future plans at all. So then you need to go ahead and just move her to the side and focus your attention on someone who's more willing to get in line with what you have going on. Because at the end of the day, like we have to preserve everything that we have. The same way, what's interesting to me is that I've seen women who now are the breadwinners, right? They might have the advanced studies or what have you, right? So then all of a sudden the tide is turned. So now I want you to consider me for me. And I don't want you to date me because I'm a doctor. I want you to just, even to the point of people not being truthful about their careers. I work in healthcare. I do something in the legal field, and not stating what it is that they do because they're concerned with preserving their finances, and they don't want someone to pursue them specifically for that. And men have to understand that your finances are also valuable, and you need to also have the same exact energy. Someone needs to be taking the time out to get to know you, and not to get to know and just to run through your money.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's spot on. Mine was just youthfulness. I said by the time I, probably about 22, 23, by the time I hit Dave Ramsey, mine was just, when you're young, you try to impress. It wasn't just females. It was my buddies, right? It was just dumb thinking. And then once I went through Dave Ramsey, I hadn't. My problem probably is I hadn't cared since. I don't care what nobody thinks of my own finances. I probably took it to the extreme, right? Because I'll keep the same shirts, man, till my wife will be like, okay, it's time to let it go. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so I probably went to the other extreme, but no, I think, Tim, I think you make a lot of good points because both of you, for me, that would be really like, it would be a red flag. And so, for example, when we look online, right, and we talk about dudes flying chicks out, I know how expensive a flight is. You think for 1 second I believe all these dudes can afford to fly these chicks out? Ain't no way. Nope. So that's going on a credit card. Mm-hmm. And, and for what it's worth, it's like, it's just basically a booty call anyway, right? So it's like, you going to fly somebody out? I mean, so I know it's gotten worse. I mean, I know it's gotten crazy. And that's the thing is, no matter what you do in life, right, someone can afford to do it bigger than you. Right? Very. And that's the thing is if a chick will let you fly her out, see, that's why I'm just a little different. If a chick will let you fly her out that easy, how many flights you think she's been on that year? Next. But like I said, I'm just different though, man. I'm real old school when it comes to some of that, man. But I get it. The world's changing. It just is, it is what it is. But I will tell you what, funny enough, I'll tell you where, because I know there's always jokes about marriage and this and that. Trust me, any man who does really have it good, it's actually the manosphere content and all this content from single brothers. That's what's helping married men who are happy stay married, because I think they're starting to realize it's rough out there. Like the grass greener on the other side. I don't believe it is. I do not believe it from what I hear. And because I was asking somebody, I was like, has that much changed in 6 years?
Yes.
They're like, yes. I was like, good God, I had no clue. I had no clue. I was dating, just 6 years ago, but it's just shifted so much or whatever. But no, I think you guys make some great points. I think you guys make some really good points. But I do like how we did the other part kind of first, and then we flip to this when you go to dating. And then what I would say is, what do you guys think someone could be doing, and this is more so going to be a younger man, right? Not necessarily a younger man. Let's just go with, what do you guys think that, what's 3 things each of you all think? We'll start with you, Sim, that a man should take into account when they're going to start dating someone that are finance related, just in general. Well, what are 3 things that you think a man should take into account?
So along the lines of Dave Ramsey, right? So I went through a phase where I was binging on Dave Ramsey, right? Mm-hmm. And I was listening to him so much that I began to start asking the questions that he was asking, right? And I told myself, we need a Dave Ramsey dating platform, right? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We need a platform. I did find one on Facebook, but the results are questionable. Right? Anyway, so what I began to do was, in my dating world, right? I began to start asking questions like Dave Ramsey. I started to ask if they were educated, highly educated or what have you. I said, okay, when do you see yourself becoming debt free? So that's the first question I asked, right?
Right.
And then that would help me to understand where the motivation lies. If they're saying, I'm going to die with this debt, if they're saying that, then I know, man, it's going to be like pulling teeth in order for us to become in sync. Because for me, I believe that the promised land is on the other side of consumer debt, right? If we can eliminate consumer debt, and then we can start using the monies that we have coming in and start using that towards funding our lifestyle, funding our wealth accumulation efforts, then we will definitely be on the upside. But if the person never sees the possibility of them ever becoming debt free, then I already immediately know this person is not for me, right? And then the second part is someone who can be satisfied with the simple things, right? Whether it's taking a nature walk, going on a hike, maybe even, going on a drive or something like that, not too far away. Someone who can be satisfied with the simple things that don't always have an associated cost. Then I know, okay, this person is practical. They're not always going to lean only towards the things that are going to always significantly cost me money, right? Because it's your job as a man to curate the activities, and the activities, they can be as entertaining as you make them, but you don't want someone who has to have some kind of engine behind every single activity in order for them to have fun. It has to be someone who genuinely just enjoys your company, and regardless of whatever you all are doing, they're having a great time, And the third part is I'd say their career and the things that they've done leading up to that, right? If they're seeing themselves being a long-term earner, do they only see their future based upon what they're doing, or do they make room for a man to come in and they're also saying, okay, once him and I together, what are we going to do together? Because if someone's only considering themselves, then they're going to have a difficult time considering what inserting a man into their life, what they would look like.
Right. Good points. Tim, what you got?
It's hard to go after that.
Yeah, I know.
I think Sim just summed it up very well. I mean,
I agree.
I don't really have much really to add. I mean, I think those 3 points are dead on. I think the only other thing I may add, and it still falls under, the third point, is really just when they looking at someone, they really just got to sit down and consider, how do they feel about money? I think they really got to dissect their belief and what do they think about money, and do they have any hangups about money? Do they think it's bad? Do they think it's good? Because I think that's going to affect them long term. Why? It's because if they think having money makes people bad, then there may be a disconnect. So you have to make sure you align financially with the belief and the mindset, because that could be a whole nother issue there. Because if you don't align, one is building, one is sabotaging. So I think that's a key point. Outside of that, I don't really want to add anything else because I think those things are definitely a great scenario to be in. And then I would yeah, I think that would be all I would add.
I would ask you, Tim. So in your world, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as the young ladies that you're considering, you know, or the young lady that you're considering, what are generally the things that immediately knock them off your space as far as being up for consideration? You know, what's the immediate deal breaker that you see that like, would you be willing to date someone who prioritizes or puts a heavy emphasis on social media, right? They're posting everything that they're doing, and they're showing themselves at the capacity that they would show themselves in the bedroom, but they're doing it on social media. Would you be open to dating someone who did that?
No, I could tell you right now. If I look back at my exes, the most they ever had was Facebook. Believe it or not.
Tim said, "Show the eyes, not the thighs."
Right. I date more conservative. I'm not interested in somebody that needs to be in front of everything, got to post everything. Because to me, you seeking attention for something. I don't know what, and I'm not a psychologist, so yeah, that's an automatic out for me. Someone that's all over social media, got to be in it, everything. And now, if they have a business, then I really look at what the business is and does their media platforms align with their business. And it's not just a talking thing or just something to be co-op or camouflage for what they're really doing. So I consider that. But outside of that, social profile, that's out. Another one is basically the 3 points that you mentioned. The fact that it's they open to the simple things. What do they think about if they have student loan debt? Do they got a strategy to get rid of it, or are they working towards paying it off? Are they? I look forward to. Are they constantly degree seekers? Meaning they just always in school, but it has to be a means to an end. And not doing it just because they get bored or they don't have no additional time, because most people don't know they'll be better off going to get a skill set outside of going to get an advanced degree that they can make more money on their own leisure, on their own time. Most people really haven't sit down and looked at mathematically it would make more sense. And also from a tax perspective alone. And they don't have to necessarily be like this big business person. I'm just saying where they're able to turn that skill set to make additional money. But yeah, those are the things that's automatic deal breakers. And the next thing is, can we have a conversation about finances? Because that's huge to me. Why? Because you need money to be able to operate, but also too, we want to have fun. I want to have fun too while I'm building. And are they goal oriented? Do they set financial goals and then do they reward themselves once they hit them? Or do they feel like just because they had a hard day at work this week, they just gonna go out and just do whatever with no self-control? So
Good stuff. I mean, for me, it's I think it comes down to first of all, I think the debt, that's spot on. If you have debt, what's your plan? For example, are you waiting on student loans to be canceled? I mean, if you are, that's because people have been waiting on that for a decade. Seriously, because I'm not that type anyway, right? I'm just gonna go get it. I can get rid of it, move it on, and move on. That's just not a good mix in general. So, really, just I say that, but what's your belief around debt in general and things like that? Also, I'm just getting a feel for your spending habits. Like, how do you how do you spend? And it's not about having nice things. You know, how do you, why do you want them? Is it just to be seen? Or do you just simply like to have nice things that you like to have? Because there's a big difference, you know, because if it's any of that keep up with the Joneses, you're never going to be able to keep up, right? Somebody's always going to have more than you. So I think that's another thing. And then just getting a sense of, I would say third, just getting a sense of how you feel about money in general from, you know, how early on, like, here's an example. And I'm not saying it has to be this way for everyone, but you know, there's conversations out there about should men pay for every date? You know, whatever. Everybody's situation is different. I know that, of course, I took my wife out on our first date. She actually told me that she wanted, you know, she was, you know, thank you. I think it was a couple days later. She's like, well, I'd like to take you out on a date next. Okay. She planned it. She paid all that. So that quickly let me know it wasn't just about someone trying to spend on you all the time. It wasn't that way. And to this day, we do stuff for each other, right? I'll plan a date. She'll plan a date, things like that. And it's always been that way. So, because let's face it, I just don't know. Maybe it's different for a Jeff Bezos, right? I don't really know, but I don't believe it is. Jeff Bezos can afford to pay for anything all the time forever. But do you think, and here's the deal, it may even be his money, right? But do you think he doesn't like the thought of his significant other taking time to like find out what he likes and treating him out to stuff, even if it were his money, right? That's where the thought does mean something. So just getting an idea that, hey, it's not just because I don't believe, I know men will fake and front like it. I don't believe any man just wants to be a big fat wallet. I don't believe that's what men's are really wanting to do, unless they just clearly it's just really transactional. If that's all it is and it's nothing else. But I don't think that's the general relationship. So I think it's things like, I just think it's things like that. I do want to take a second because I haven't done it. I've been a bad host. I do want to shout out people that have, you know, people in the chat. It's been, you know, it's been a lot of back and forth. Of course, Uncle Stu, I saw Sir Hell Speaks in there. I know I saw Before the Billions, Khalil King. I know him. Me and him are very good friends. So I'm glad he stopped by. Wally, Sim. I'm just playing. Wealth Engineering still in there. Square Biz. And if I forgot anybody, definitely my bad. But I just want to point out, we always love the always love the back and forth. But yeah, that's, you know, those are really, I thought it would be good to just talk about some of those habits, because I know that, you know, today we do get very caught up on the conversations around being submissive and being this and that, you know, but the truth is, I think before it comes to that, there's a lot of other stuff, right? I don't know that divorces are happening. I don't know that, put it this way, I don't know, and we'd have to ask lead attorney, has he ever had someone come in and file for divorce and say she won't be submissive? I don't know. Probably not as much as money issues, things like that, right? So I'm sure submission is in there somewhere, but honestly, so I thought would be good to just talk about the money aspects, other relationships, whether it be marriage, whether it be dating, men's perspectives, women's perspective, because I'll think it's important stuff. You know, at some point, and let's face it, even men, MGTOW, men going their own way, they're still spending money on women one way or another. So it still comes back to finances one way or another. So I just thought it'd be a good topic. And one thing I did say was just, and by the way, I did drop the link. If anybody does want to come up, feel free. I'm not gonna hold the guys too much longer, but one thing I did want to at least point out before we wrap it up is, where do you guys, and I'll actually start on this one and sit back and listen. Where do you guys think the economy is going from here? You know, my take on this is, my take on this probably is, we may flirt with the idea, and I'm leading so you guys know kind of where I'm coming from. My take is, we probably flirt with a 10% interest rate. Could it be a little more? Maybe, but we probably flirt with near 10, in my opinion. We may not quite reach that. I don't know that I actually don't think we'll reach it, but we may get up to it. And if we do, not for a very long time. And then, so I think it does get worse, right? But I think by I'm going to say late 2023, somewhere between the end of 2023 and 2024, we're really back in a position where some of this has calmed down, at least really calmed down, and certainly at least stabilized. So I think 2023 is going to be interesting. I think the housing market will actually be one thing that keeps us from going over the deep end, in my opinion, because there's just a supply issue still. So I think the housing market may be what kind of helps us. I think it will drop off, but this whole idea of just getting houses for nothing, I don't see that happening. I just don't. It may, but that's kind of what I see. So ultimately, I just wanted to give you guys a general idea. That's where I think the interest rate will be. And then I think it'll start to come back down. And I think by 2024, certainly 2025, we're probably heading back up to, I think crypto's back up and rolling by then probably. And just the markets are starting to roll back up. Because what we do have to think about is elections do have some bearing a lot of times, and just decisions that are made as well. So that's why you're starting to see they've been kind of being a little quiet. After this midterm, I think we'll start to see it crank up a little bit more. And then you got about 2 years from now, we're really probably rolling again. So that's my take on it. Nothing life threatening, but I think it's a great opportunity for those who really want to get in. I think there'll be a lot of millionaires made between now and the next 2 to 3 years, in my opinion. Sim?
I say this?
I was going to let Tim go. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to say this before I answer your question. So 2 things. So one, I do think, going back to dating, I think some people should not date.
You do?
Yeah, I think some people should not date, because I think if, like you stated, if they're in debt and they're going further in debt, I don't think they should be dating, because dating relationships cost money. So I think if we're talking about, and I'm gonna just speak to the man on this one, I think if a man is out there dating and he's going in debt to do it, and he's maxing out his credit card and all that stuff, then he don't deserve that right. Because if he find a woman that he's genuinely interested in, he's coming in a deficit. So in that case, he should not be surprised that she may feel a certain type of way, treat him a certain type of way, because what that's normally going to lead to him selling her on empty promises he can't fulfill. So I think some people shouldn't date. And then same for her. If she got a lot of overhead, she shouldn't be out dating expecting to meet some man to come take care of that overhead. She should get a hand on it, maintain it, do something. So I think I think both parties, it don't matter about gender, they need to have some stuff in place. Then the next thing is it just lost me. But anyway, I'll go ahead and answer your question, because I lost
it. No, good. Great point.
What was the question again?
So just, where do you think the economy is headed from here next couple of years?
I think the economy is going to go down more. I totally agree with you. I think the interest rate's going to go high. I think inflation might jump again. And I think also this is the best time for people to be prepared where they can really get their come up if they're paying attention to the right things. So, I mean, I don't make the rules. I just try to understand them the best I can at my level. And I look at it as it's an opportunity for a come up. Um, I, but I think it's gonna go further down because I think we're gonna go into in the next year or so. I think we're gonna go into that erratic state where so many things is will be unknown, kind of like this year. But I think it's gonna be a little bit more swings.
Yeah.
So I think erratic moments in the economy is the best time where you can get a come up if you're paying attention, you prepared. So
Good deal. Sim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think along the lines of what Tim just said is going to happen. One thing that I used to observe in my past is I used to go to the car auction, right? So we would go to the car auction, and when we were bidding on the cars, we knew that if we were bidding on cars around tax time, there were more people that had more money, and they were more susceptible to overbidding on the cars. Whereas when it's outside the tax season, when people have a little bit of extra money, then we know the competition is a lot lower during those periods, and we're not having to vie and fight for these overpriced vehicles. So that's a likening to the climate that I believe that we will be in going into the future. I don't think that we'll be in an environment where the interest rate is low and the opportunities are high. I think that, the interest rate is high because the people who are at the real players and are in position to actually take down these deals, they're still taking down deals because when it's time for them to refi, they can just go ahead and refinance at a lower rate. But if there's an opportunity for them to get something worthwhile, they're going to go ahead and do it. But those are only the people who are in position. And it's the same exact thing with the stock market. Everything's on sale, but then nobody has money, right? So then you can't take advantage of what's on sale because you're not in position to take down and put yourself in position. So I think that what we have to really consider is every single dollar that you have to really consider who's benefiting from every single transaction that you're having and who's going to benefit in the future from the transactions that you're having. Because the market's down right now, but it's only a matter of time before it comes back up. The likes of Amazon and Tesla and Apple, they're not going to be on sale as they are today. So the people who are saving their money and not spending it in order for them to have a persona online, they're the ones who going to be quietly amassing wealth during this period. So I think we have to do whatever we can to be in position. And that, like Warren Buffett said, one of the biggest investments and the greatest asset that you can have in your book of business, and from a personal standpoint, is your spouse. And having that alignment with your spouse will help you out going into the future. So that's what I believe.
Great. Something I will add is a lot of this is, and maybe this will help somebody, I don't know. A lot of this is easier for me to look at simply because of this. If you really do just look long-term, I don't care where the market's at. If I'm buying today, 20 years from now, I'm straight. So it don't really matter. I know it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day now, but even if you just look at it, 5 to 10 years down the road, you can simply look at the math and see that, there's not going to be a 10-year period where the S&P was lower than it was 10 years prior. Right? So you dollar cost average, right? But people aren't thinking long term. So I think if people would think long term, it would just be way easier. So, but guys, I think that's it. You guys got anything else to add? These were really the only topics I had.
We have a question in the chat.
Do we? All right, what we got?
Square Biz.
Yeah, she asked what is overhead. So when I'm talking about overhead, meaning a person coming in with a lot of extra financial responsibilities and they're expecting to marry or get in a relationship and expecting the other opposing person to take care of it. And that overhead could be excessive credit card debt, excessive student loan balances, things of that nature. Very expensive car, very expensive living, very expensive furniture bills, for various, those type of things. And
Absolutely.
I hope that answer that question.
Should Tim, do you think that men should be using that as a deciding factor? Do you think that men should be using that as a deciding factor as to whether or not they're dating one person to the other, in your opinion?
I think yes, unless he's Jeff Bezos, somebody like that. I think for most men, yes. It's just unfortunate because why I think that's important is because if you come in, I'm still a believer. If you start wrong, it's going to end wrong. So if you start a relationship with a lot of overhead and it's not resolved, then that's going to lead to possibly more arguments in a relationship. Then if you have kids, now if you have kids, now there's a good chance the kids that some of that, if you haven't done the work to reprogram or change the trajectory, then it's knowing 9 times out of 10 it's going to spill over to the children. So now you went from being unfinancially sound to one group, now it's going to the next generation. So I think when you think about finances, you see one thing about finances I will always say is people need we sometimes think selfishly, but finances should also be thinking about the next generation coming behind you. Because they're gonna be a direct result most of the time, foundational of whatever the parents is doing. So I just think that it's something that you really got to think about, especially if you want kids. I just think in this era, especially with the question Perry asked earlier about what we think the economy is going to be doing in the next year to 2 years, I really think we just have to we got to be forward thinking on outcomes. Now, it does not mean that we may get the outcome, but you got to at least think about and have a plan and have some type of strategy for the outcome versus this pie in the sky idea. And I think this is where we at right now is because we got too many pie in the sky ideas. It just work itself out. I'm not going to put no time and effort into it. So
I'll say that
absolutely.
I'm guilty of watching couples, whether it be on Dave Ramsey, His or Her Money, these various different platforms who seem to execute a plan in order for them to pay down their debt and eliminate consumer debt. So I'm guilty of watching those examples and then being hopeful that maybe something like that is possible for me as well, you know. And so I can say that that's a role that I've played in being optimistic about the possibility of meeting someone who you can have an alignment with. But I don't know if in practice it just requires more work in the background where you have to really assess the person's mindset from at a young age, like the things that they admire and the things that they respect, and whether or not they feel like they can see those things in you and that they're willing to commit themselves to that as opposed to waiting for some rich guy to come and rescue them.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to your three responses, Sim, to the question on what would you tell a young person that's starting in the dating field about what should they look for in finances. I think that really goes back to even if they want to level up or do better or change where they're going. I think that's just a key part of they got to understand those things because it's going to help them get a better outlook on where they want to go.
Absolutely. Great points, guys. Great points, man. Obviously, I always enjoy just chatting about this stuff. I feel like this is the stuff that's, this is real life conversation here. I mean, money. There's a lot of issues obviously come from people not having their finances together. You guys have anything else to add?
No, not for me. I think I'm good. I think we had a great conversation. I think When it comes to finances, it's still one of those things where you don't have to know it all. Just sitting back and taking some time, 30 minutes of fun time, turning it to 30 minutes of learning time. And you do that for a whole year. That's 365 days a year that you got some new information that you didn't have the prior year. So I think you're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. Sim, you?
Yeah, so a lot of the same, you know. I think for me, it was Dave Ramsey's show that helped me to really start asking the questions as I began to really unpack the what seemed to be the formula that he had for a successful relationship. And it seemed to me that it was a situation where both couples were working together in order for them to eliminate and rid themselves of consumer debt. And then once they've done that, then they can put themselves in position in order for them to start amassing wealth. And unfortunately, that's where I broke off because I just didn't feel like his message was contributing positively towards me understanding how to start building wealth and how to start growing my money. He does a really great job of helping you with the discipline of paying off your debt and then having the mindset of having as little to no debt, if at all possible. So he does a great job with that. I just didn't feel like he really gave me concrete information as to how to address building my incremental steps towards becoming wealthy. And I can just say that you just have to figure out, like Tim said, a little bit at a time. You know, you figure out the person that you can listen to that's giving you information that's not only leading to you going to their products, but they're giving you information that's going to create an appetite within you for you to look into how you can put yourself in a better position and how you're going to be able to take a hands-on approach towards your financial life. And so it's difficult for me to just tell you one place. I strongly recommend you find someone that you can respect. They're all sort of finance content creators, and it's about really just finding someone that you feel like you can respect and you can listen. To me, I listen to people who I felt like lived a life similar to mine, and it might be different from you, but those are the things that I saw that really helped me out leading up to now and have created this desire within me for me to stop getting beat up by money, and for me now to start hitting money back and figuring out ways that I can put myself in position with what I have today.
Absolutely. So, look, here's the last thing I'll add. It's a long journey. These, overnight success with money doesn't usually come. And if it does, you don't keep it. Money's something you have to learn. I mean, there's really no shortcuts, right? Now, well, I don't say there's no shortcuts. I mean, people fall into money, right? But if they don't have the background or haven't built up the right things to know what to do with it and keep it, you're going to end up right back at the same place. So there really just is no shortcuts. This thing is a journey. And let's face it, because you continue to level up, there's a good chance that, let's think about it, as we make more money, a lot of times we feel the exact same because we're trying to get to that next, so that's why it really is about that mindset of figuring out what you really need, what's worth it. And you can always continue to make more, but trying to, at least from what you need to live off of, finding a way where you got some type of passive income to handle that. And then the money you make, anything else after that is a positive or for future generations. And that's really what you want to get to. But guys, we got to do this again. Definitely enjoyed the stream. Hope everybody, well, first of all, thanks for everybody that tuned in. As always, everyone in the chat, much love to each of you. We really appreciate it. And we will do this again soon. And we'll try to do it even more consistently. I just like these conversations. If we can get on once a week, or every 2 weeks at least, continue to have these conversations. And if you take anything from it at all, that's all we're looking for. So salute to each and every one of you. Take care.
Salute, everyone. Have a good night.
Take it easy. Take it easy.